Well, hello, everybody. This is Pastor Jay, and I am coming to you from the Vicarage here in Winchendon, Massachusetts. And we are continuing our Digging Deeper devotional for this week. This is our Saturday Digging Deeper devotional, and we are digging deeper all this week into Acts chapter 7, the sermon preached by Stephen before his stoning. Stephen is the first Christian martyr recorded in the New Testament, and he preached this sermon that we have been looking at for the last couple of days. And we're going to conclude our look. Now, we're not going to go all deep into this. We've only had 3 days with this sermon. It's easily 50 verses long. And so there's a lot that we could draw out of it, certainly a lot of historical knowledge. We could get into the stories, the individual stories that Stephen glosses over as he's preaching. But his point really is that where he is coming from, in fact, what the Sanhedrin is persecuting him for, is just the continuation of the story that God began telling long ago through Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Moses and the prophets. And Stephen is saying that his work and his preaching of the gospel is just the next logical step. Now, Stephen said this back in the year, it was probably 40 AD. So 40 years into the time after Christ. And we stand 2,000 years differently, 2,000 years apart from that, right? So it's 2025, and here we are. Stephen is preaching in maybe 40 AD, so fully 2,000 years ago. There's 2,000 years of history between him and us. But still, we are part of Stephen's story every bit as much as he was part of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses' story. He was a continuation of their story, and we in the Christian church today are a continuation of Stephen's story. Like I said yesterday, our experience is only a chapter in a much longer story. Stephen's experience and the story of Stephen is only a chapter in that very long, never-ending story. Moses, in the book of Exodus, his life is just a chapter in the never-ending story. So our experience today, yours and mine, is a continuation of that biblical narrative, just like Stephen's was a continuation of the biblical narrative. Now, we're not writing scripture. There's not going to be any book of J coming out. But our experience is a continuation, a living epistle, Paul the Apostle says. We are living epistles of the story of Jesus Christ and his work through the epochs and ages of history. Our experience does not contradict the story that has gone before, but our experience does help fulfill or complete the story. Now, most of you know that I believe that while we aren't quite at the end of the age, we're coming close to it. And so our part of the story is that part of the story that we see in prophetic literature, in the book of Isaiah, in the book of Ezekiel, in the book of Zechariah, in the book of Revelation. Our story is becoming those parts of the story. Paul the Apostle says this in Colossians 1:26 and 27. This message, the message of the gospel, the message of the story of Christ working throughout the ages, was kept secret for centuries and generations past. Now, this is back in the year probably 60 AD. But now, Paul says, it has been revealed to God's people, for God wanted his people to know that the riches and glory of Christ are for you Gentiles too. And this is the secret. Ready for the secret? The secret of the never-ending story? Christ lives in you. This gives you the assurance of sharing his glory. God's plan throughout time has been to move his people of faith, closer and closer to that line where we could be co-heirs with Christ. We could share in his glory. And that's his plan. That's his purpose. We just have to join the story. And so here we are in our time, our troubled times. And God is saying, stop being a part of the enemy's story and begin being a part of mine. All right, that's all I have for you today. Tomorrow, we begin preaching Acts chapter 8, blessings and bruisings. See you tomorrow. God bless you and be at peace.